I think we can all agree that the Indiana Hoosiers have upgraded at the guard position in basketball, but what does head coach Mike Woodson have to say about it?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Apologies for no episode yesterday. Had some emergency things come up, had to take care of, so I do apologize for that. But we are back here today and hope you're doing well here as a member of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, the Indiana Hoosiers and head coach Mike Woodson went into the transfer portal this offseason with some big-time goals in mind, and one of those was to upgrade at the guard position. And look, it is no secret if you listen to this show, and really, I think with a lot of you as well, the Hoosiers upgraded at the guard position, bringing in Myles and Kanaan Carlyle, two Pac-12, RIP, Pac-12 starting guards that were really, really good at what they did, and they're going to come in and be day one starters. Well, Mike Woodson actually talked about these. He had a chance to come out and talk and give us a little bit of insight on what he's been going on and what he's been doing in the transfer portal. He talked about the guard play. He talked about a few other things as well, so we'll get to that today. Plus, there's a new schedule announcement as the Hoosiers hosting a new team this year on the schedule, and we'll get into the NCAA legislation stuff later on in the show as well. But as I mentioned, Indiana head coach Mike Woodson and Kurt Cignetti were able to speak with the media on Wednesday during the annual alumni event at Huber's Winery for Indiana. So they do this every year, of course, and the coaches come out. It's a huge event, huge donation time, and all that sort of thing. And the coaches get to speak, and Mike Woodson gave us some media availability. And he talked about numerous things in here. We'll get to it today, the guards and people coming back and some updates and stuff like that. But I wanted to specifically read you and respond to his comments about the guards that he brought in and what he's looking for in the guard play. The question he was asked was, how can the additions of Myles and Kanaan Carlyle help evolve the offense next season? And Mike Woodson says this, quote, "You think about our guard play over the last 3 years, and it's no knock. We had guys like Xavier Johnson." He goes on and names a few others as well. He says, "We couldn't keep anybody healthy, number one. And I've learned in this short period of time that I've been in college, you win with good guard play. It's great to have big guys that can play and do the things that we've had over the last 3 years with our bigs that we've coached, but you win with perimeter and guard play, good guard play." And that was something that we came out of this past season, not having Xavier Johnson, the games he missed, that we had to really ramp up our backcourt and get better. And I thought that we've done that. Well, he's absolutely right. And that's the end quote. He's absolutely right. You look around college basketball, you look at the teams and the programs that are consistently winning big-time games and winning national championships. UConn, look at what they've done. They've got elite guard play year after year after year. Look at the other schools and the big boys around the country that always make big runs. It always, in college, comes down to guard play. You've got to have it. And you don't have to have a point guard that can score 25 points a game and knock down 5 threes. That's not what we're saying here. You don't even have to have a shooting guard that can do that. You just need guys that can get a bucket when you need to, can orchestrate the offense, and can take care of the basketball. If you can find some guys that can do that right there, and a little plus, I guess, is play some defense, right? Hold their own on the defensive side of the floor. If you can find that, then you're an elite team. And let's just be honest, Indiana did not have that last year. We had nothing going for us at the guard spot. Yes, I know Gabe Cupps played okay, and he had some moments where he held his own. I understand that. But the difference between Xavier Johnson and Gabe Cupps was pretty significant. And even Xavier Johnson was not healthy. And the games that he played, he had some good and had some, well, not so good. Trey Galloway, I love the guy. And we've had this conversation many a times on this show where he has had his time and he has been a good player here. but he wasn't where we needed him to be, and he's not where we need him to be anymore, which is why you go and get Myles Rice and Kanaan Carlyle. So Mike Woodson understands, look, you got to go get some guards, and that's exactly what they did. They went and got two of the best guards out of the portal, and I think this team is much, much better because of it. And he was also asked about the guard play, and he basically just, what are you looking for from the guards? And he says, quote, I tried to build our team around how I played a little bit in New York with the Knicks. We had guys like Jason Kidd and Raymond Felton, Pablo Pergoni, guys that can create, make plays, not only for themselves, but for their teammates. That was one of the things when we sat down after the season in terms of evaluating players that entered the portal. That was going to be an emphasis on players that we brought back here from a perimeter standpoint. And these two guys, Rice and Carlyle, are capable of making plays off the bounce. They're capable of making plays for their teammates, and they're capable of putting the ball in the hole. And they're young players. I mean, if things don't go big and according to plan, all these guys' dreams are playing in the NBA. And if that doesn't happen, then hopefully you get them back for another year or two. That's kind of how we approached that when we stepped out to recruit these guys. So I'm pleased with the guys that we've brought in. I just got to put in the work now to get them ready to play, end quote. So he went after aggressive guards. He went after guys that you don't have to set them up and get them plays. They'll do it for you. They'll do it themselves. That's what makes a good guard great. That's what's going to make the difference and be the difference from what you've seen last year, what you've seen in the past with Indiana with the guards, and what I'm hoping you're going to see this year with Myles Rice and Kanaan Carlyle. You went and got experienced guys, ones that you can trust, ones that are just going to, again, go get a bucket when you have to have it. And that's what you got to have. In those tight games when the offense isn't working and you're on the road at Rutgers and it's 59-58, go get somebody. And one of these guys can just turn it on and say, all right, everybody get out of the way. I got this. That's what they bring to this program. And you can tell that this coaching staff here in Bloomington really put an emphasis on what they wanted. They understood we have to be better. We have to go get some dudes at the guard spot. And they did. You got shooters, playmakers, scorers at your guard spot in the 1 and the 2 between Kanaan Carlyle and Myles Rice. So very excited to see what they are going to bring to the team next year. There's some more comments on here that I want to get to, so we'll have that coming up for you in the next segment. More comments from Mike Woodson, plus the schedule announcement that we have as Indiana will be hosting a team in Bloomington inside of Assembly Hall for the first time in a long time. We'll have that coming up for you next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can get on the Game Time app and you can see all the great features and all the different events, sports, comedy, music, theater, you name it, they have got it. All their last minute ticket deals. They have zone deals sometimes. So if you pick a specific zone, the price is actually a little bit lower. Plus, you can see your view from every single seat and every single venue. And the best part, it's accurate. It's exactly what you're going to see when you buy that ticket and walk inside that venue. It's going to be exactly what you bought. And the Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day, and I appreciate you making that. So if you're on YouTube, be sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel if you have not. We continue to climb, so thank you so much to my everydayers. You are the reason that we are here each and every day. Also, my audio listeners, thank you so much there. Follow us, subscribe if you can, turn on notifications. However, you can make sure you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, before we get to the scheduling announcement, I want to go through some more of these comments from Mike Woodson. He did comment on Trey Galloway in his knee rehab. He says, quote, he's going through rehab and he's not ready to play yet on the floor, but we're hoping and thinking he's going to be back and ready to go once the season starts. We've got 8 weeks here coming up starting June the 3rd, well into July, and hopefully by then he'll be ready to play. And Trey Galloway, do not get me wrong, okay? He's an important piece on this team this year. He's a very important piece. He's a leadership role. He's an experienced guy, and he's somebody that can be a spark for you off the bench. Because, again, I don't think he starts. Whether he starts game one or not, okay, I don't think when you get into the heart and the meat of the schedule that Trey Galloway will be a starting guard for you this season. But what that means is you get to bring a guy who's been here a long time off the bench, who knows how to play, who knows the system, who knows what he's doing, and he can get hot. We have seen Trey Galloway turn it on in the past and start knocking down shots left and right. That's what you get to look forward to this year, Indiana fans, from Trey Galloway, is hopefully a relaxed, kind of a stress-free, not a lot of pressure, Trey Galloway. So hopefully all the knee stuff works out and that he's able to, hopefully he's able to kind of get back into Trey Galloway form and really become a threat for this Indiana team coming off the bench this season. So looking forward to that. And then Mike Woodson also was asked a lot of questions about the transfer portal, of course. And the one thing that I wanted to point out, he was asked, is there anything you did differently this year in the portal to be so successful? And he said no. He says, I've done pretty much the same thing every year. He said, we just sat down at the end. I'm kind of jumping around through this quote here. He says, we sat down at the end of the year and I kind of treated it like when I was back in the NBA. I make our guys rank the top 10 players at their position, then I make a decision on who I'm going to get. And if it's the best player, then we got to give it a shot, because all they could do is tell us no. And I like that mentality, right? It's why not? Shoot big, shoot for the stars, right? Go for the big fish. And if you don't get them, you don't get them. Well, luckily, the Hoosiers got them this year and have ranked and landed the top portal player, Umar Ballo, who he has a quote on. And pretty much, no matter where you look, top 3 recruiting class in the transfer portal rankings. But, I mean, I think it's up there. I think it's the number 1 class. I really do. Here's what he said about Ballo before we talk about the scheduling announcement. He says, quote, he's won. He's been in a winning atmosphere at Arizona, and he's produced. He's had some good years. He's an older guy that's serious about winning. That was the whole thing that attracted me to him, and that's why he's wearing the uniform, man, because I think he can help us with his leadership get to where I want to go, and that's winning a Big Ten title and a national title. That's huge, man. That is huge props for Mike Woodson, who, let's be honest, he doesn't talk about titles very much. He doesn't bring that up a whole lot. We know that's what he wants, obviously, but he doesn't come out and talk about that very often and bring it up on his own. He did right here with Umar Ballo. He believes that Umar Ballo, the transfer from Arizona, the center who will be your starting 7-footer this season, is good enough to get the Hoosiers where they want to go, which is flirting and competing for not just a Big Ten title, but a national championship as well. That's big time props from Mike Woodson. So there are more comments. You can go and find those, but I wanted to read some of those to you and comment on those, because those are really good words from Mike Woodson at the yearly their alumni event in Indiana. Flipping over to the other topic, though, that I wanted to get to in this segment, Indiana announced that they are going to be hosting South Carolina this year in college basketball for 24 and 25. Really, really excited about this, because if you don't know much about this South Carolina program right now, they've got a very young, and I'm not saying inexperienced, but a coach that's an up-and-comer, I think. And he is really, really good. Lamont Paris is a guy that took South Carolina from nothing and made them pretty solid last year and a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. They will host South Carolina November 16th of this year in 2024 at Assembly Hall. We don't have a game time or TV or anything like that, but Here's some stats that you need to know about South Carolina. Third year under Lamont Paris there in South Carolina. And let's see, during the first season, they were 11-21. Then they went 26-8 this season. It's just unbelievable what they're able to do. 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. They were bounced by Oregon, but this is a good program, and this is an SEC team that's going to be coming here to Assembly Hall. I'm excited about this, man. I really am excited about this matchup. Hey, how about some of these dates, all right? Indiana's 2-1 all time against South Carolina, and the last time they played was 1998, a part of the Hoosier Classic. How about that? The last time that South Carolina came to Bloomington was back in 1973. So I think this is an overdue trip. I think so. I think you're about time for you to make a trip back to Bloomington. And look, it's going to be a big-time game. It's one of those big non-conference games that we just don't know a whole lot about yet. But this isn't Morehead State, which I know we can't joke about that because our non-conference games last year were abysmal. But this is a really exciting matchup. This is an SEC team from the other big conference. Look, it's the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC right now. That's just what exists. You've got a couple teams from the ACC, but it's those three major conferences that are getting it done in college basketball. And so you're going to grab a top third team from the SEC and allowing them to come into our house. That atmosphere is going to be fantastic here at Assembly Hall on November 16th. I think it's after the battle for Atlantis. And so you've got that going on, and you'll have all those non-conference games that we do know about. Plus you have this one, but it's going to be at home. And so pretty early on in the season too, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the basketball season. And so a really good test to see where Indiana stands, how we match up against that South Carolina team. I know they lost a ton off that team, especially in guard play that they lost this year. But I'm excited, man. These are the games that I love because, yeah, we get excited. We play Maryland all the time. We play Purdue all the time. That's always exciting. But you get what I'm saying here. These non-conference games are really when you figure out, okay, here's where we stand. Now, you'd love to win it with it being on your home floor. If you don't, it's November. You're going to be okay. But here's what's exciting, too. If South Carolina goes on to be a really good team in the SEC and goes on to be another tournament team this year, and you get that win in November, you can use that as a resume builder, a resume piece when March comes around and the tournament committee gets together. And if the Hoosiers are on the line, I hope we're not, and I don't think we will, but that's something you can use. If you get into that situation, you can use this as a resume building win. It's a tournament win if Indiana beats South Carolina. And I think you could say that early on, even though they did lose a lot of their players. Hopefully South Carolina goes on to be a good team. And I'm excited for this game, man. Again, November 16th is when South Carolina will be making a trip down to Bloomington. November 16th here in Bloomington, I guess coming up to Bloomington, right? November 16th inside of Assembly Hall. South Carolina taking on your Indiana Hoosiers in non-con play. Final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Going to take a little sidestep. It has to do with Indiana. It has to do with every college program. The NCAA legislation where billions of dollars are going to be handed out and schools can now pay players. Man, there's just so much to get to. I'll give you my initial thoughts on that after this on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, appreciate you being here. A shout out to all of my everydayers. You are the reason that we do this each and every day. Now, I'm sure you've all seen it. I'm sure a lot of you have gone in and read about this. I am not going to sit here and break all of this down for you right now because there's a ton. You could do this for the next month and we couldn't get to all of it. But if you have not seen it, there is a legislation that was passed and basically a settlement that was resolved where the NCAA is going to be shelling out billions of dollars to former players, current players, and things like that. And yes, that's the important part. But the thing that everybody has taken from this is the fact that what was now approved is schools can pay players directly. Yes, you heard that right. Schools are now going to be able to have the ability to pay players directly from their revenue. Okay, so basically, revenue sharing has become it exists now. It's a real thing. Schools are going to have, there's a number that has yet to be agreed upon. They're thinking around $20 million a year, where Indiana can take $20 million out of their revenue, out of their profit, right? They can take that and they can pay players directly to come and compete here at Indiana. Can be a quarterback, can be a point guard, can be a catcher. Doesn't matter. They can take that money and pay players to come and compete at your school. And other schools can do it too. Again, that number has not been agreed upon yet, but they're thinking around $20 million. And what does this mean? What does it mean for NIL? What does it mean for transfer portal? Well, I think all of those things are still going to exist. Most NIL is going to be done in-house now. You're still going to have the collectives and things like that, but that's going to be a lot closer to the chest now. And I just don't know how much more you're going to see a player go to school A over school B because of the NIL collective money. That's what this is trying to get rid of, I think. And you're still going to have it, but I still think you let players, and they're still going to have the ability to go and find their own brand deals. This is how NIL was supposed to work, and I think this is going to kind of reel that back a little bit from how the NCAA completely dropped the ball. They'll be able to show up, and when they create name, image, and likeness for themselves, as this was supposed to be how it was, then okay, that car dealership or that card shop or whatever mom and pop restaurant wants to spend however much money and have a sponsor athlete. That's what that's supposed to do. That's how NIL was created. That was what it was intended to do. It just turned into a big recruiting tool. So I'm hoping that NIL gets back to what it was supposed to be, because now these schools have this big lump of cash that they can go out and pay players openly. In my opinion, I think this is getting towards contracts. I think you're getting towards legitimate contracts like you see in the NFL and the NBA, any professional sport out there. I just think that's where we're headed. And I think Mike Woodson also had some comments on this that I wanted to get to, if I can find it for you. Maybe he did. Yeah, here we go. He said, the question was, what has been your interpretation and thoughts on the NCAA's ruling that schools can now compensate players? He says, quote, it's going to help. I think anytime you get additional money that goes towards recruiting, it's going to help. We're in different times now. He says, this summer was a busy summer for me and my staff in terms of entertaining the portal and just a lot of work. And it's not going to change. It's going to be that way for years to come. It is what it is. I just think as long as the playing field is even for everybody, it should be very competitive, being able to go out and recruit and get talent to come in and help you win. And I'm with him on that. As long as everybody has the ability to spend the same amount of money, and as long as there is a salary cap, which is kind of what this is, you can't go over that. Now, are schools going to do that? Probably, because everybody... Can we agree that college sports have not been clean? Like, college sports are just not clean. They're not. It's been dirty for as long as it's been around. But as long as there is something in place that says, okay, you can spend this amount of money out of your revenue, you cannot go over that. As long as everybody has that same standard, that same line, then you're okay. Now, some schools make a lot more money than other schools, and that's where you're going to see separation. There's a lot of concern in terms of Title IX, because there's a lot of people that think a lot of these programs and teams that just don't make money at schools like Indiana, outside of football, basketball, they don't make money. Baseball sometimes breaks even at big name schools, but every other sport, softball, swimming and diving, track and field, doesn't matter. They don't make money because it's just not there. The revenue is not there to compensate how much they're spending for athletes to compete in their sport. And that's okay. That's fine. These schools have accepted that because they make so much money, most of them off of football, a lot of them off of basketball as well. But people are concerned that those sports are going to go away because schools aren't going to worry about it. And of course, Title IX gets in there and it's going to be a mess is what it's going to be. My personal opinion as we wrap this up, I hate it. I don't like where this is. I don't like where it's at and where it's going, but I've seen it coming, and a lot of you have too. And you just got to accept that this is the new era of college athletics, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it except watch it. And for people like Mike Woodson, for people like Curt Cignetti, who are head coaches at big name programs and trying to build them back up to where they need to be, you've got to buy in and you've got to dominate. You've got to find a way to make it yours. And it's going to be competitive, but you've got to be smart about it, and you have to find ways to gain the advantage. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, and hopefully we can figure that out as we go. But I just don't like where college sports are headed because, in my opinion, money was the thing that kept college sports and professional sports separate, right? It was the big thing that kept it all different. That's what made college sports so much more exciting and passionate and just overall better versus the NBA and the NFL. But that doesn't exist anymore. And players are already being paid, but now schools can pay them directly. And revenue sharing is here, and it's here to stay. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. Be sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow us, subscribe, turn on notifications on audio as well. We'll have another episode coming out for you tomorrow as we wrap up the week here on Locked On Hoosiers. Until then, stay safe,